Good evening. Welcome to the Dorchester District 2 Virtual Academy Parent Information Night. We are glad that you're here tonight to learn more about Dorchester School District 2's newly created Virtual Academy. My name is Greg Harrison. I'm the Executive Director of Secondary Schools, and I'm going to be one of your presenters tonight. And joining me is Ms. Lori Estep, who is the Executive Director of Elementary Schools. So we're going to both be presenting behind the scenes. We have a team of folks who will be answering questions. I see that the question and answer box is already going on. So all of our guests, as just a reminder before we dive into our information, all of our guests are going to be muted throughout the meeting and as we're doing the presentation. And we encourage everyone to please post all of your questions and answers in the Q&A box. As you have questions, and we have a team of folks who will be answering those questions. We have folks from curriculum and instruction, as well as special services who will be monitoring your question and answer as we move through the evening. If time does not permit tonight, we will post answers, and we will respond to any unanswered questions on time permitting. If time does not permit, we will post answers to all unanswered questions on the Dorchester 2 Virtual Academy website, which you can find by going to our school district website, which we'll give you the address later on in the presentation. A link to the copy of the presentation will also be posted online with this recording from our meeting tonight. I'd like to start by just recapping our mission and our vision. Dorchester School District 2 mission. Dorchester School District 2 is leading the way every student every day through relationships, rigor, and relevance. And our vision, Dorchester School District 2 desires to be recognized as a world-class school district, expecting that each student to achieve at his or her optimal levels and providing all members of our district family with an environment that permits them to do their personal best. We want to cover learning options. So all parents, you are here tonight, you are interested in finding out more information about our virtual academy. And so I want to just cover our two learning options that we have for parents. Parents will have a choice to choose between a school-based instructional model and also the Dorchester 2 Virtual Academy. This plan was submitted to the State Department on July 16th, the school-based instructional model, and it includes potential face-to-face, a hybrid model where students will be divided 50% and they will come to our school on A days or B days, or e-learning. And I'll go into what each one of those are in a little more detail here in just a second. But on the other side, the choice for parents, if you choose not the school-based instructional approach, you have the virtual academy. And the virtual academy is the students are receiving 100% of their education and their teaching online for all students. So what is the difference? And I'd like to first just start out and say that both of these models, our e-learning model as well as our virtual academy model, they do not look anything like what we just went through in the spring. So I want to make sure that everyone is clear on that first. We have a solid plan, and we have training and professional development, which we'll get into later in the presentation. But what we just went through as we closed schools in the spring, what we're talking about, neither one of these options look anything like that. So what is the difference? If you look at the e-learning option, and you look at the face-to-face and hybrid, those learning options are based on DHEC feedback, and they are based on the disease activity level, where if you're at a high level, our schools will go back in an e-learning mode for all students. And then as the disease rates lower and the activity level lowers, then we'll look at bringing students back in a hybrid model, or we could start at a hybrid model, just depending on our rate of disease activity. And if you look on the other side, the online learning for students in the virtual academy, one big difference is for our students and parents who choose the virtual academy, it has nothing to do with the disease rate, activity, or feedback from DHEC. Students are electing to go 100% online regardless of what the disease activity is or what rating DHEC puts our state and our county in. Want to also just make it clear for e-learning that if you are in our meeting tonight and you're really considering, is the virtual academy for me? If I'm going to, and this is one of the questions that we get, so I want to address it now, but if the level of activity for the disease goes down, do I have the option to move back to my home school? If that is something that is really a big question for you, we would encourage you to look at the school-based model, because there is flexibility based on disease activity level, where we have, if it goes down, we bring students into the building. If it goes up, we take students out of the building where they will be with their teacher in their brick and mortar school, regardless of what model we're in. Now, the virtual academy model, those students will stay with their virtual teachers for 100% of their learning, regardless of the disease level. Ms. Eastep, you want to add something on that?
Sure. I'd like to address the e-learning side for under school-based instruction. As Dorchester 2 has become an e-learning district, this was put into place not only as a result of COVID-19, but in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had weeks and several days out due to hurricanes, due to the 1,000-year flood. So as an e-learning district, that is also an option under that school-based instruction, that should we have a hurricane or a threat of a hurricane and need to be out of school for 4 or 5 days, we would switch then to e-learning as well. Again, the virtual academy is separate from the school-based instruction. They have their own teachers for the virtual academy, and they would be 100% virtual all of the time, regardless of any kind of virus, regardless of any kind of hurricane. It's really for those students that love learning virtually and do well at that.
Thank you, Ms. Eastep. And so we're moving to the next slide, the purpose and the goals of the virtual academy. The Dorchester School District Virtual Academy will provide a virtual pathway for students and family to access local teacher-led virtual classroom environment. The goals and the three top goals of the academy: to provide 100% virtual instructional model for students and families living in the Dorchester School District 2 attendance area. We will utilize Dorchester School District 2 instructional practices in a virtual setting and provide an alternative learning option for our students and our families. So we're going to start with, what does the virtual academy look like regarding our faculty and our staff? Staffing of the virtual academy will require the transfer of teachers from the traditional classroom setting to the virtual program. And that is important for all of our families to know, because as we're fielding questions about, can I leave the virtual academy, go back to my home school, we're making staffing decisions based on enrollment in the virtual academy, and we will be pulling some of our teachers out of the building, so there may not be enough room, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the presentation. But it is important to know that we are taking our teachers from our traditional classroom, and they are going to be our the ones who are running and teaching in our virtual academy. We will offer fine arts and other elective classes in the virtual academy. Then, depending on course requests at the high school level, we may utilize some teachers, and we most likely will utilize some teachers from outside of Dorchester too. And a good example of that is our partnership with Trident Tech for the dual enrollment program. We work with ECPI for high school students and Virtual SC. Some of those programs, we will still utilize those teachers who are outside and not really a teacher of Dorchester School District 2, but they partner with the district in order to offer opportunities for our students. Staff will have the same working hours and the same daily instructional schedule as the faculty and staff in the brick and mortar schools. And later on in the presentation, we are going to share with you a few sample schedules of what it looks like to be a student in the virtual academy. So information regarding students. Students must be enrolled in Dorchester School District 2. Students may include those who have an IEP, a 504, enrolled in GT, advanced placement courses, dual credit courses, etc. Students must attend live, and this is synchronous and asynchronous, which will be the next slide, but we expect our students to be live with their teachers in class daily with course-specific certified teachers, as well as scheduled personalized conferences. So on top of meeting with their teacher live each day at an assigned time, students will also be completing asynchronous independent activities, whether that's a recording that a teacher put together or an outside assignment. They will be working very similar to the brick and mortar setting where a teacher would lead part of the class discussion, and then students would break off to do group activity or break off to do independent activity. So we will utilize synchronous and asynchronous instruction for students. Students may need to take on-site proctored assessments, especially mandated state testing, and arrange their own transportation. And attendance for the virtual academy will be taken on a daily basis, just like it is at the brick and mortar schools, and we will follow state regulations as it relates to attendance. Students will follow the Dorchester 2 instructional calendar. So whenever we have holidays and brick and mortar students are on holiday, that same holiday would apply, and start dates and end dates, everything that's in the regular instructional calendar, our students in the virtual academy will follow that same calendar. Students may participate in after-school extracurricular activities at their regular school, provided that they provide their own transportation. And that's an important one to talk about. We're going to talk about it again later in the presentation, but since students are enrolled in Dorchester 2, they are connected to their home school. They're part of that home school. They go to those extracurricular activities at their home school, whether that's sports, graduation, those types of things for students.
Now we're going to talk about some information for the entire family. As Dr. Harrison mentioned earlier, it is a full year commitment. We prefer that, again, based on staffing, and also for students to have some consistency as well. We don't want them going back and forth. So, but if a family requests a transfer after starting out in the virtual program around semester break, we would take a look at that to see if appropriate space was available and to see if that was best for the student's needs. Parents and guardians, we're asking that you create a work environment at home for your children or for your child so they can successfully learn virtually. Again, we suggest sitting at a table or whatever might be comfortable for them, making it their school area. So when they get up in the morning, they know, okay, it's time for me to start classes, and they have a place to go to. There is no additional cost for the virtual academy other than the regular school registration fee that all students have, and a new technology fee for the devices that all students in 4K through 12th grade will be receiving this year. Students and their families must commit to the experience and the culture of a virtual learning environment because it is different than the brick and mortar. Again, I mentioned earlier that a lot of our students prefer that way of learning. So knowing your child or your children and how they learn best will be a big determination in whether you choose a virtual academy or school-based instruction. Parents and guardians will be required to maintain open communication with teachers and staff. This is really important. This is important even if they're attending a physical building, but even more important we feel in the virtual academy, since they will not see each other face to face. But again, they will have, we ask that you have open communication, and should you want a conference with a teacher, we'll talk a little bit later, teachers will have office hours, much like they have now. So again, we do encourage that communication. One of the last things that we want to let families know is that the students and parents will be required to complete a student-parent contract for the virtual academy. And this is just so the expectations and responsibilities are laid out at the beginning. And so everyone understands what the expectations would be. What you're seeing on the screen now are just a few of the components of the student-parent contract. For example, I understand I must read and respond to emails, texts, and phone calls from the Dorchester District 2 Virtual Academy teachers in a timely 24-hour manner. This is a way that the teachers will keep in contact. If your phone number, address, or email address or emergency contact changes, you must notify the teacher in a timely manner. Again, these are just some best practices that will help your child or your children to be successful in the virtual academy and make things a lot easier for everyone involved. The next slide is showing you some enrollment information. We've gotten questions on this, so we wanted to include it. Students will remain fully enrolled and continue their enrollment the following year in their school of residence. So whatever school your child will register at, that you will have to do online registration in your school of residence, as well as complete the enrollment form for the virtual academy. So there's 2 steps to that, but they will remain fully enrolled in their school of residence. Registration will follow the same protocol as it has in the past, and students accepted into the Rawlings Middle School of the Arts will also remain eligible for Rawlings Middle School of the Arts the following school year. In addition, with the enrollment information, just want to let those folks know that if you have a senior that will be joining the virtual academy, the senior would also graduate from their enrolled school of residence and be able to walk with their classmates. Dr. Harrison mentioned a little bit earlier that we may have some outside learning partners that would be helping to enhance our virtual academy. Some of those learning partners are on the screen. He mentioned Virtual SC, which the high schools already use for some courses. Edmentum and Apex are also currently being used by the middle schools and high schools. Edmentum and Calvert Learning are actually partnered, and those would be the programs that would be resources for our elementary virtual academy this year. And then also Waterford is currently being used in our kindergarten and 1st grade.
I just wanted to say on our partners, these are resources for our teachers. So we don't want our families to think that I'm going to be stuck on an Apex course or an Edmentum course, and that's going to be my learning pathway. These are just partnerships where we can provide resources to our families, to our teachers, so they're not having to recreate all of the online activities. So it's a more meaningful learning experience for our students.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the elementary learning opportunities, because some of the questions that we've gotten are, will my child be able to have all of the same classes as they have in the traditional brick and mortar school? And that answer is yes. If you notice on here, we have the English language arts, we have math, science, social studies, art, music, PE, health and wellness, and we've also built in a social emotional learning piece, because we know that that's one thing that has been brought up by many parents and that we've read a lot about during this coronavirus pandemic, that's going to be something that we definitely want to address. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time going over an elementary sample daily schedule, because again, even our teachers and again the parents are asking, so what does a virtual academy look like? What's my child going to be doing all day? Are they going to be sitting in front of a screen for 8 hours? Are they only going to have 2 hours of class and then they're done for the day? So here, this screen is hopefully will provide you some answers to those questions. So our thought is that first thing in the morning, and again, this is much like the brick and mortar school, they start out and would have the regular school schedule from 7:15 to 1:45, starting out with a morning meeting where the teacher, welcomes the class in, explains what the objectives are for today, what they hope to accomplish, takes attendance, because as Dr. Harrison said earlier, attendance will be taken every day. And again, that's where they could fit in their social emotional learning piece. The district's elementary literacy model is 2.5 hours. That does not mean that your child will be on the screen or looking at the screen for 2.5 hours, but they would receive a daily lesson via our learning system, which is Microsoft Teams, where they would be face-to-face with the teacher and either provided a mini lesson, which would be possibly for the whole group, is one way, or they also could work in small groups while a part of the class goes and works on independent activities, or they go and work on an instructional technology piece, but they would have a daily lesson every day in reading language arts with their teacher. We've also built in time for brain breaks or movement breaks or restroom breaks, whatever you want to call them. But the teacher, again, this is a sample, and once she or he gets to know their class, could build those breaks in when they see that those are needed. Again, the next possible class would be math. Again, our district's math model for elementary is 80 minutes. So that 80 minutes, again, could possibly be a 20-minute whole group lesson, a 20-minute lesson where the teacher meets with a small group and the other students go and work on an assigned activity. Lots of variations there. Again, a lot of what is being done within our brick and mortar schools. Again, we've set aside time, just like every day, that the students would have a lunch and a recess, come back, and they would either have science or social studies. Again, this is an actual lesson where the teacher would take attendance, that the students are coming back and not skipping out after lunch. So, and then at the end of the day, you see there in this particular schedule, they would then have their fine arts or their PE class with a fine arts or PE teacher for the 40 minutes.
So we know many parents don't just have a student that's in elementary, middle, or high. So we thought you may have a middle school student if you're joining this presentation, as well as an elementary student or high school student, or you may know someone. So we wanted to share all the information in the presentation. So what are the middle opportunities for middle school students? You will see that, and you'll see when we go to the high school, we are doing our best to provide, and our goal is to provide every possible class that a student would be able to take in a brick and mortar setting. We are doing our best to provide those same learning opportunities, like Ms. Estep said, in our virtual academy. So at the middle, we have our language arts core and GT, math core and GT, science core and GT, social studies core and GT, fine and performing arts, which was already mentioned, and you'll see social emotional learning will also be across all levels, elementary, middle, and high, and we'll look at a sample schedule for a middle school student in just a second. Related arts, which would include PE and health, intervention and support classes, world languages. Our CTE classes would include keyboarding, financial literacy, and IT fundamentals would all be offered at our virtual academy to our students. So a sample of a middle school student's day from 7:45 to 8:30, teachers would hold office hours, and that's a time if, just think of, I guess, if you're going into a brick and mortar setting where a teacher may be available to meet with a student before school and work independently or answer questions. This is what that office hours are for, in case there is a student that has a question or needs to get in touch with their teacher or needs some more individualized instruction. That time is built into the schedule. You will notice that the schedule is going to look very similar to what a student would experience if they were at their home school in a brick and mortar setting. And we did that on purpose. We wanted that consistency and that structure for our students. We felt that that would help them be successful. So our first period will begin at 8:30. And you'll see the day is 8:30 to 3 for our middle school students. And course 1 would be English language arts in this example, for first period. Second period would be, an example could be math, and third period could be science. And in all of these courses, just like Ms. Estep said, in each period, we're not expecting that a student would sit there and just watch a teacher for the entire time. They would be broken up where it would have whole group lessons. It would be small group lesson, individual practice, and that kind of thing, where our students are differentiated, learning strategies are met. So again, like the elementary, we're not expecting our students to sit and look at the computer for that long, but teachers, just like they would in the classroom, we wouldn't expect our teachers and students to sit there and watch our teacher teach at the front of the building for the entire time, but to break up those lessons very similar. So that day will look a lot like it would look in the brick and mortar setting. So 11:20 to 11:40, you see we have an advisory time that's built in, and that is, again, where there's a check-in. This may be a time where a counselor can meet with a student or groups of students. That will be where social emotional learning activities could be pushed in and delivered to our students, and just some wellness checks for our middle level students. From 11:40 to 12:10, we have lunch. And then in the afternoon, you can see how the schedule continues until 3 o'clock with 2 electives and social studies being in the afternoon. We also have built-in breaks you'll see in between classes, so students need to get up, stretch, go get something to drink, go to the restroom. That is built into their day as well at the middle school. All right, so examples of some opportunities for high school students. And again, we're trying to offer every class that we can to our high school students that they would be afforded to if they were at their home schools. So English, math, science, social studies, CTE, fine and performing arts, other electives, world languages, and social emotional learning, all are opportunities that our high school students would be available to. So what would a typical high school schedule look like? Well, to start out, our day is 8 until 4, and students at the high school level will focus on 4 courses each day. So 4 courses each day on a block schedule. So for 9:30 until 10, you see block 1, and that, for an example, would be English. And again, we would expect that a student is not sitting there for that entire length of time. There would be live sessions, there would be small group sessions, there would be independent learning, time where a student is working offline on certain activities. And then you would go to second period, same thing. And in this example, world geography may be the class. And then we build in that ILT time, just like we have at the home schools, that individualized learning time, which is also their lunch time, where students can go back to any teacher and get assistance. Small groups will be used during that time. Our counselors pull small groups at that time. That will be a time where our social emotional learning piece could be added in, and also a time where students are getting lunch. Then you'll see the afternoon with 3rd and 4th block examples. We just put that it could be some electives, or the electives could be 1st and 2nd, and it could be flip-flop. But this is just a typical example of what a day would look like for a high school student. And again, not expecting that a student would be on the computer from 8 o'clock until 4, but that time would be broken up with synchronous and asynchronous lessons.
The next several slides we're going to share with you are questions that we have received already via email or postings or phone calls that have been pretty frequent. So we wanted to make sure that we address those in the presentation tonight. as well as our moderators addressing your questions that you are putting in the question and answer box.
So yes, just wanting to encourage you, because we have a team of folks who are answering those questions, and we see the questions are coming in and they're being answered as we go through the presentation. But one of the most common questions that we've received, will you offer specialized instruction? And the answer to that question is yes. And here's the ways that we're going to do that. Students with an IEP or 504 may participate. And students who are in this situation are in this category, your child's school-based IEP or 504 team will meet to review and identify individual services or supports that will be necessary to meet your child's unique needs. Another way is that the way we are going to specialize instruction, gifted and talented services will be offered to students who qualify. And also for our high school students, we're going to offer dual credit and advanced placement courses based on the student's course request. And so that is the answer to that question. Yeah.
The next question, do I need a computer or other textbook resources? Absolutely. DD2, however, will provide an electronic device to students enrolled in the Dorchester 2 Virtual Academy, as well as in our brick and mortar schools also. We will schedule pickup dates for parents to receive those student devices, as well as any other supplies that might be needed for instruction through the Virtual Academy. One thing to point out is that a technology and resource tutorial will be required for both the parents and the students, and you will be getting more information on that when we schedule the pickup dates for those student devices.
Another big question that we're receiving is, can my student return to the traditional school setting at any time during the school year? The question to this one is yes and no, and I'll explain that answer is that we are asking for a full year commitment out of our families because the first bullet is our staff. We're going to use staff from our traditional schools to staff the virtual academy. So we're going to take those teachers from those traditional classrooms to use them in a virtual setting. And that's why we're asking for that year commitment. But in January at the semester break, if a family has decided that they would like to be considered to go back to their homeschool, we most certainly are going to look at that. But we'll have to look at the individual needs of the student, as well as, do we have space available back in our home schools? If we're pulling teachers out of the traditional classroom and we have students who are shifting and wanting to shift back, then it may not be space available at the home schools. But we will do everything that we can to accommodate our families and our students, because we want our students to be successful. One thing that I mentioned earlier, and I'll repeat it on this slide, is if you're thinking about the virtual academy as an option for you solely based on the disease level and the disease spread level of COVID-19, and you would like to return to your traditional school once the disease activity level lowers, we do strongly encourage you again to look at the school-based model, because that model has that flexibility that's already built into it, and your student would not be changing their teachers. They would keep the same teachers regardless if we're e-learning or on that hybrid schedule. And it's not based, the virtual academy again is not based on DHEC guidance and the recent disease activity.
Can I make my decision to enroll once I know what traditional school will look like? Again, you know, I know we sort of sound like a broken record because we keep saying that everything is based on the accurate enrollment numbers, and we're looking at having teachers in our traditional classroom serve in the virtual academy. Those that have applied, we have interviews scheduled next week for them. The enrollment process actually closes out on Tuesday, so we're sort of on a timeline for being able to make this happen. So while we would love to allow everyone to wait until that date when we decide, unfortunately that's probably not going to be possible because we are using the DHEC guidelines to make that determination of whether we will come back face-to-face on a hybrid model, which is part face-to-face and part online, or on an e-learning model, which would be all virtual. So as Dr. Huggins said, please take a look at both options, both the school-based as well as the virtual academy, to make that decision on what your reasons for thinking about applying for the virtual academy would be. And as just a reminder, if you fill out the enrollment for the virtual academy for your student, you will also have to complete the online registration process for your school of residence when that opens. In the same way, if you have applied for the virtual academy and then decide after submitting that that's not what you want to do, please make sure that you email the information that you will see at the end, email that address and let them know that you would like your application to be removed.
Another big question, can my student participate in extracurricular activities? Some of the questions that we've been asked are about graduation, prom, participate in sports and clubs and extracurricular activities after school. And the answer to that question is yes, students may participate in after-school extracurricular activities at their regular school. Again, because students are enrolled in Dorchester School District 2 and they are part of their home school and they stay part of their home school. They're just receiving their education through the virtual academy. They're not removed from that school. They stay attached to that school. They can participate in the extracurricular activities. One thing that we do have a note in here is that parents are responsible for providing their own after-school transportation for students if they would wish to participate in any of those extracurricular activities.
One more thing before we close out. We know this is a big decision that families are trying to make, and so we appreciate you joining us tonight and asking the questions. I would encourage you that if you still are unsure and would like to speak with somebody, certainly reach out to your principals, reach out to your schools, and talk it through with them to see what may be the best for your child. Even the teachers that you've had in the past may be able to shed some light on that. On this slide, you'll see again any additional information or questions that you have. Please email us at DDTwo@dorchester2.k12.sc.us for any questions that you may have, as well as you may visit the website shown there at the bottom, which is also where the application is to enroll. We have also posted a frequently asked questions page, which we will update regularly, along with other information that may be useful to you in answering your questions or helping you to make the decision. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. We thank the moderators for answering the questions and hope that you have found our session beneficial.
And want to just jump in because we do have about 15-20 minutes left in this presentation, and we built that time in so that we could answer all of your questions. So if we're going to stay on, we're going to mute ourselves so that we can look at some of your questions as well, but continue to ask those questions. We know that we shared a lot of information in a very short amount of time, and we just want to provide you that opportunity. So we're going to stay on for a little while so that you are still able to ask questions. And the folks who are responding to those questions, they're going to continue to respond to those questions. We don't want you to feel rushed. We want you to have the appropriate amount of time so that we are able to fully answer all of your questions. So we will hang on until we get most of our questions answered, and then we will come back on with a notice of when we're about to log off. Good evening. Just want to again thank everyone for joining our session. A lot of great conversation going on in our Q&As. One that I would like to touch on, again, it seems to be popular in our Q&A, is students, if you or if you choose for your student the virtual academy, and then you would like to change back to the brick and mortar. Again, we are encouraging a year commitment, but we will look at students on a year case-by-case basis at the semester, so that we can, if we have space available, we would allow students to return if there's space available, but that will be done on a case-by-case basis. As far as can I elect to start out hybrid and go back to and then choose virtual academy, again, this is going to depend on space in the virtual academy. Since we're building our faculty and our numbers based on enrollment at the beginning of the year, we most certainly would look and consider that, but it would be dependent on whether we have space available and seats available in the virtual academy. And Ms. Estep would also like to address a few questions.
The questions that have come up through the question and answer tonight are regarding how our virtual academy will look different than in the spring. For one thing, attendance will be taken. For another, many of our students were provided with paper and pen packets, and that will not be the case with this. This will be all virtual. They may have some materials that, as I said, could be picked up at the school that they would have at home to work on, but they will also be meeting with their teachers for direct instruction on a daily basis for each of their classes. Again, during the spring, quite honestly, we were caught a little off guard with 2 days to get ready to do e-learning, and our teachers got a lot together and they did the best that they could, but we have had time to plan. Our students will also have the technology with each child being able to get a student device that will be picked up sometime in August. So again, it will look very different, and rest assured, our students will definitely be getting a quality education. One of the last things that I want to address is we've had a couple questions on the social and emotional learning. Our guidance counselors and our school counselor coordinators, as well as our school psychologists, have partnered with Clemson's Department on Social and Emotional Health, and they will be learning strategies and providing resources to the schools to help students when they return. I'm sure you've noticed it's been difficult. They've been at home. We want to get them acclimated back into attending school, whether that would be face-to-face, a hybrid, or a virtual model. There's not a particular curriculum. Like I said, we have partnered with Clemson University, and we will be getting a lot of their resources, but the schools that have Capturing Kids' Hearts and have other social and emotional strategies to use, we will certainly be using those and doing what's best for children to be engaged with their classmates. We know that it's been difficult for them to not be able to be in close contact, and so we want to be able to meet their basic needs as well as their educational needs.
Okay, again, we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight, and if you have additional questions, we shared that information where you can send an email and also access information on our school district website, where if you go to schools, you can look for the Dorchester 2 Virtual Academy under schools, and on that site is going to be links to some great resources for our families. But we appreciate your time. Have a great night.